Hi, and welcome back to the lab. I'm here with Coach Stephen Padilla from USBC Coaching, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to determine the length of a lane condition. You know, it's a very mystical kind of a thing when you think about bowling in itself, because we're bowling on a very invisible environment. You know, not like other sports where you can kind of see the playing field, but in bowling, it's invisible. So it's very important that we know exactly what do we have out here and how those forces interact with us. So one of the first things that every bowler I think should really pay attention to is how far that ball is traveling down the lane. So Coach Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about the processes that we recommend for bowlers to go about trying to figure out how far that oil condition that's applied to the lane, how to do that?
So there's a couple of options, Lou, when you really think about it. One of the easiest ways, obviously, is if you have a lane sheet. Something gives you a program of what the pattern looks like. You can get the number directly off that sheet. So it may say the distance is 34 feet or 38 feet, whatever the number is. And that's pretty easy to help kind of visually see where you expect the lane pattern to show you reaction with the shape of the shot. But if you don't have access to that information, the bowling ball has to be the tool that tells you exactly what's happening on the lane. So you have to know approximately what you expect to see, and then you have to determine what you're seeing to help understand how to find that distance. Now, there are some systems too that can help you determine exactly approximately how far you expect the lane pattern to be based off of not knowing anything. Like you said, it's an invisible surface, so you don't have a clue, so to speak, as to what you're on until you do something to it. And once you deliver the ball, there's some processes you can do perhaps in practice or pre-tournament shots that will give you an approximate area of what to expect just in lane distance.
So from a bowler's perspective, I mean, should they approach that whole idea and system with their full approach involved, or kind of maybe taking it from the foul line just nice and soft and gentle?
Slower is going to be better in this case, for sure. If you throw your normal speeds, then you're looking for ball reaction to be what you expect normally. In those cases at normal speed, if the difference is a couple of feet one way or the other, it's not going to be magnified. So you need to slow the ball speed down, a one-step drill or maybe a foul line drill just to give yourself a soft speed to start. If you're looking specifically for the distance on the end of the pattern, the slow speed is going to give you a bigger variation visually in friction once the ball hits that dry surface.
Okay. Now, another thing to look at is that bowling ball itself. You know, we see the remnants of that oil condition on your bowling ball, especially modern bowling balls that have some flaring to it. How do we determine the volume? Because not only we can see the length now with the ball and we can see the distance, but we can see also those flare bands.
So the actual physical lane oil you're going to see on the surface of your ball can give you some indication as to how much volume's out there. Now, the hardest part about that, in my opinion, would be that you need to be experienced in knowing what perhaps a lot or a little bit of oil looks like on the surface of that ball. So just looking at it for the first time, expecting to kind of know what the volume is, it's not going to be a good indicator. There's not a scale or a tool or a measurement somewhere that says here's visually a lot of oil in that flare ring, or here's visually less oil on a flare ring. So it's just practice more than anything, knowing what to you or what to your environment is a lot or a little bit of oil. But you can see thicker bands of oil, obviously, in heavier volumes. The lane surface can give you a visual of how thick or how wide that band is. You can see glossier or thicker flare lines in the first couple of flare lines typically, because that tends to be the heavier volume on the lane. But to actually measure how much is there, it's all a visual, just a visual observation of what you expect or what you're seeing. And then basically the overall bow motion is still really the true indicator as to what's going on out there on the lane surface.
Now, this awareness is really only at the very start, because obviously the lane environment does change over time with X amount of bowlers being on the lane and the type of bowling balls that we use. So are we to assume that this information is good for pre-awareness or pre-tournament or pre-league, you know, information on how to approach the given environment, or is this something that we should look at for the entire tournament or the entire night?
Yeah, it's most important just to do it at the beginning of the event. You're really looking for just a basic outline of what you're up against initially. Bowling balls are going to change the lane surface with every delivery, so the oil is going to change, the path you're going to have to take is going to change. The first indicators of what length you're going to have on lane pattern and perhaps how heavy the volumes are in different parts, or the shape of the pattern in different parts of the lane, those are going to be used initially to give you an approximate maybe what ball to use, maybe what part of the lane to play in, and just get you started. After that, it's pretty much free-for-all for everybody as far as the competition, whether it's a league night or tournament, and that's going to dictate what you need to do beyond that point.
Well, that's great information. When we look at the awareness of the environment, I think that's the big takeaway is, what is the length and what could be the volume. But having that information can kind of guide us into what we're possibly going to be selecting for our bowling ball choices. So that's a very big piece of the equation in trying to match up to the environment.